Good morning, everyone, and we are live on this happy, fine Sunday here. I hope you are having an awesome, happy, high day, and if you're not, you better get high with us. We have an amazing guest today with us. Heavyicerx is tuned in with us to talk about bubble hash today. Some super awesome tips and tricks for you people at home, how to make your own medicine, healthy medicine, that is. And before we get started, I'm going to talk to you about if you are here to join us and you are on live chat, make sure you have live chat up, because if you don't, top chat will leave some of the comments out, so you will not see everybody's comments. And thank you all for tuning in here today. We have Red River and Drake as my co-hosts today. Thanks, guys, for being here. Without further ado, I think we should go in for a dab. What do y'all think, and tune this up?
I'm ready, that's for sure. I'm super excited to be here. Was chatting with Red a little bit early, getting some morning sessions and some good morning vibes going, and we're lucky enough to have Heavyicerx hop on. So how are you this morning, Heavyicerx? What are you puffing on?
I'm good. I am mostly working on GMO at the moment. I got some 70 micron.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
From 2019 harvest.
Nice. Now, I've noticed my Wi-Fi is going up and out a little bit, so I'm going to take a quick dab and have a refresher, and let's see what Red's puffing on. What are you going in on? Did you have some rosin you just showed off?
Yeah, it's just some of my flower rosin. It's old OG, just good, sweet, lemony, cushy. It's Kim Dog, lemon Thai, and Old World Packy Kush. That's it. Still my favorite. So cheers.
Nice, that's awesome. And I'm going to jump in on some of this Rockstar. Some good old Rockstar. It's just BHO live resin, but looks pretty nice. Got some solid form to her. So
baller jar.
Good old baller jar.
Well, welcome everybody. We got Mole Vision out there. Stu, how are you this morning? Bingo Lombardi, welcome to the party. How are
Cheers,
you,
Bingo.
John? How are you all doing?
Cheers,
Thanks
John.
for joining us today, CBD voter. How are you? Well, let's dab. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Got that right. And yeah, I'm super excited to jump into some hash tips today, some bubble making, because there's so many little things that you don't think about when you're going through the process of it, especially when you've done it 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 10,000 times over. You really get into a little mode and a little go, and you don't think of all these simple little tricks and tips and stuff that you go through that like I'm just saying, it's something that you would just glance right over. There's so many little ones, and I'm sure we're gonna pop through a bunch of those today and just hear another really renowned producer's way of going through things and how they like to do it and kind of what product he likes to work with. And it's another thing to be excited about. So now that Tara's hacking away and got her dab in, it's my turn. So I'm jumping in, getting ready.
All right, Drake, thanks for hanging out. So, I think what maybe we should talk about first is maybe talk a little bit about Heavyicerx got into cannabis. Maybe we got to share a little bit last night, and we got to talk to him a little bit about that. I think it's always kind of nice to know people's backstories of how they got into the industry. Was it something that obviously was a passion, or something that, was physical or mental, or an element that cannabis does help with? And I always love to hear those stories, because I think they help a lot of people help to understand and maybe want to try it themselves if they're having issues with things. So Heavyicerx, I'm going to turn the time over for you. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, my story with cannabis started completely on the medical side. I had injured my lower back at work. Actually, I take that back. I injured my lower back some unknown way in around 2002, and went and saw a doctor and had a surgery, and seemingly everything went just fine. And my employer was really difficult with me after the surgery, though, and insisted that I come back to work within 30 days of major back surgery, and also that I come back not on any pharmaceuticals, because they were I was the graphic designer at a beer company, so they had issues with people taking pharmaceuticals around all the beer, I guess. So I held them off as long as I could, and finally I had to go back to work or give up the job. It was a pretty bad job market at the time, so I didn't want to do that. So I went back to work, trying to just do the job, finishing up my healing at the time with Tylenol for the pain, because that's, Tylenol and ibuprofen, those kind of things, because they didn't want me on the pharmaceuticals. And they just were really difficult with me. I just returned from back surgery prematurely, and they added a whole bunch of physical job duties to my job list. Like, I'm a graphic designer. I sit at a computer all day, and they added like moving these big 50-pound spools of paper around the offices and stuff like that. Just bizarre stuff, trying to get rid of me, basically. But
well,
one day,
trying to give you some position that you would just say no to, so they could legally let you go.
Right,
That's crazy.
Unfortunately, I'm really stubborn, and it was to probably my own demise. But one day my boss came up to me. The salespeople there had been really, really nice to me, knowing that my back hurt. I would print out these like these 2x3 foot signs for them to put in stores, but I would print out like a roll of them, 200 feet of them. And you have to go through them with a paper cutter and cut all those apart. It involved a lot of repeated bending and things like that. The salesman loved me, though, because I was an actual graphic designer and the first one that the company had hired to do this job. And I wasn't just like a secretary that, knew how to use Microsoft Word. So, I was making these cool posters for him. And then one day my boss, who didn't really have anything to do with what I did in there, came in and said, all right, Aaron, if you don't do these 3 physical jobs today, instead of passing it off to the salespeople, take a hike. And so, stubborn me, I went and did it and tried to cut those signs apart on the paper cutter. And at one point I just felt a kink in my back and I fell to the floor, and it was just like, the first back injury I'd had. My knees kind of gave way underneath me, and I crawled to the phone and called my dad. Said, Dad, I think you need to help me down out of my office and to my car. And that was it. Like, I fought with them after that. I didn't go back to work. My doctor sent them some kind of note, saying that I'd re-injured something. A new x-ray showed I'd ruptured a different disc just north of the one that they just fixed. And then unfortunately,
Wow.
the surgery to fix that was not as successful, because repeat back surgeries never are successful. And then they decided to try it again, which was also not successful. Each time my pain is increasing, all the pharmaceuticals are increasing. I got to the point where they were telling me that they couldn't give me any more OxyContin, that I was like on the maximum they could give me. And I was also taking 1.5 grams of ibuprofen a day. Like, I mean, compare that to hash. 1.5 grams of ibuprofen. Can you imagine consuming that much every single day and putting that through your liver? And
No, and I thought 1 gram of hash was bad. So holy shit,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I don't think anything of 1 gram of hash a day anymore. Like, that's nothing. And it's a plant. So yeah, and the doctors just, keep compounding all these pharmaceuticals when their surgeries don't work and when the pharmaceuticals don't work. So, you're on the opiates and they don't work. And so you get really depressed because the opiates don't work. And so the medical doctors, who don't really have any business prescribing psychiatric drugs, start prescribing psychiatric drugs for anxiety and depression. And, those are meant to be, even if you believe in them, they're meant to be used, under the care of a professional and not some nut with a script pad. So they just keep compounding them. They give you a pill for depression and one for anxiety. And, you know, all these wreak havoc on your gut. So they start giving you the proton pump inhibitors, the purple pill, the healing purple pill. And yeah, I was up to like almost 12 pills a day that I was taking. And I did this for 12 years because they couldn't fix me with surgery. So my pain specialist's final diagnosis was, you're going to be in pain the rest of your life. Opiates are what we're going to give you. And, you know, the final breaking point for me was when they basically acknowledged that it was destroying my liver, you know, my gut and my liver. And so they wanted to give me an implanted morphine pump that they could control with the Bluetooth, you know, and, you know, they could fill up once a month or whatever, however they do it. I didn't even you had to go to a seminar to hear about it. And I didn't even go to the seminar. I was just like, you're not implanting a morphine pump in me, you know. I have had several older relatives in hospice, and you know, whether that's they do it on purpose or whether they're trying to treat pain in elderly people, you know, that's often how they end up dying, is, you know, with a gentle morphine overdose. And, you know, I really felt like that was the point that my doctor was telling me I was at.
Wow.
You know, you might be better off.
Well, exactly.
You know?
And I mean, nothing good is going to happen from having a morphine box inside you, and anything goes wrong with that. Like, it's
right.
just like, my goodness, holy smoke. I appreciate this so much that you're just willing to share all this information out there for all the others that have gone through similar experiences, or even for people who haven't, but are just going to be blown away by what people have to go through to get to the point where they're at now. So
right.
continue on. I'm so sorry you went through all this.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was at that point. I think I you know, things were a little blurry because I was still on the pharmaceuticals back then.
Oh yeah, you can't remember shit when you're on meds. I know, and it's all fog.
It takes forever to detox and get your brain back, and you know, you might not even ever get those neural connections back that were there before. So you know, the dates and everything are fuzzy. But at one point, you know, after I'd rejected the pain pump, I had been watching, because all I could do at the time is eat junk food and sit on my couch and watch TV. That was my entire life on pharmaceuticals. And so, but I'd been watching these things on like National Geographic Channel and the Discovery Channel about people giving CBD to epileptic kids and stuff. And they didn't really touch on chronic pain or anything, but it made me start wondering if cannabis was something that might help. So I looked into it locally, and, you know, it had just been like medical here for a couple of years. So there was a little bit of legitimate information around in the area. But as soon as I asked my actual pain specialist about it, he was like, no, you know, that's going to kill you. That, you know, that stuff will kill you. And you know, if you dare mix it with any of the pharmaceuticals, I'll cut you off. And you know, he scared me, but not in the way he thought he was scaring me. Like, I went home from that appointment and had made my appointment for the next month, because that's how they work it. You have to go every month to get your new drugs. I'd pretty much decided after that appointment that if he balked at me getting my medical marijuana card, then I was just going to ask him to detox me from the opiates, however he wanted to do it. And I was just going to be done with him. And that's pretty much what happened. Like, I didn't have my card yet, but the next time we were in there, I kind of said, like, why no to the cannabis? And he got really mad again. And I told him I wanted to get off the opiates at least. And so he did that in kind of a cruel way. He made me detox on my own, like at home, for 2 days before using any of the pharmaceutical methods that he had to stop all the withdrawal symptoms. And had I known how that all worked going into it, I wouldn't have even let him do that. But So my medication for OxyContin ran out on a Friday, and he told me that I would do 2 days, and I would call on a Monday, or not call. I had an appointment on that Monday, and I would come in, and he would physically give me my first Suboxone dose. Like they have it at CVS, you know. So I stopped, and I was 2 days shivering and convulsing and throwing up, and it was miserable. And it ended when they gave me the Suboxone. So luckily I already had it in my head that I wanted to get off the pharmaceuticals. So getting off the Suboxone after about a month wasn't really too difficult, because it just kind of turns off the side effects, I guess, kind of the opiates. And then from there, really the hardest thing was getting off of the benzos, the psychiatric kind of meds that they give you to deal with it. In fact, that's really the long-standing issue that I feel like I still am dealing with the most. It's not chronic back pain. It's not even side effects from the opiates. It's the side effects from the benzos. And they're the reason that I got into looking into other natural medicines, like other herbs and mushrooms like that heal your brain.
So what type of psychiatric things do you feel like the benzos have really affected you with? I'm really curious on that.
It's hard to explain. One example, I guess, would be that, like, in my previous life, before all this, I was a graphic designer and a working musician, and both involve a fair amount of creativity and being able to visualize things in your head, that aren't in front of you, that you can't physically see. And I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't do graphic design anymore. Like, things don't look good to me together. I don't know how to explain that.
No,
but
I've never been
like something got fried that was in my brain previously.
I hear you.
I can only imagine
it just doesn't work.
It would be to be able to do that and then have it taken away, because even for myself, it's so frustrating to see just how many other people are able to utilize that and do it so well. Whereas that's not how my ADHD crazy Drake brain works. It doesn't work that way. So it would be horrible to have something like that taken away from you. So again, I just feel so bad for everything you've been through, but I love that you're willing to share it and get it out there and help other people, because that's how you kind of make a twist out of these unfortunate things, right?
Right, exactly. And on the music side, luckily I didn't lose, the muscle memory, any of that kind of stuff, or the theory. So I can still play music, but like I don't write as much as I used to, and I don't like improvisational type stuff. I would just flounder with anymore, just because being asked to be creative on the spot. Like those particular neurons seem to have been fried. So
and that was like your job, for Christ's sake, right? That was your vein, your essence. And with music, with everything, that's that is it. That's the soul, the spirit, in a sense, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'm to be honest, I was not a super technical player. So that's what people were paying me for. They were paying me to hear my interpretation of what we were playing, So yeah, that's frustrating, but at least I still get to enjoy music, and I of course still get to appreciate graphic design and art and architecture and things like that. I just can't visualize it anymore. You can't explain a building to me anymore, and and I'll picture it in my head. That doesn't work. I'll say like, okay, well, you can explain it to me if you want, but then you have to show me a picture, because I can't picture it at all.
Wow, what a bummer. So welcome to the panel today, Darren. We're talking with Heavy Ice today. We're getting his backstory this morning about how he got into cannabis. And we're going to get into talking some tips and tricks here about some bubble making, because let me tell you, if you've just joined in, you all, this guy has got some amazing hash. Let's show off his Instagram real quick and let him have a break from talking here just a minute. Let him have a drink. Let's go back, and I'm going to show his Instagram page off if I can find it. Oh, you got it already. There you go, Drake. Cool.
and go
There
through
you
how it'll
go.
look here. And then, yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, he's also a mod on a lot of the pages just throughout the industry here for the, you know, if you're in the hash game, you'll know of his presence for sure. And my goodness, there's some amazing products coming out. I love just being on the sideline and watching all the things that come to fruition at his hands. But Darren, how are you this morning? What are you puffing on? How are you doing? Are you ready to get a little hashy with us this morning?
Oh yeah, you betcha. Just smoking some bowls. Getting ready. Seeing what the conversation's going on. And
well, right now we're just getting Heavy's incredible backstory, in which I had no idea about. So that's just another amazing thing about having people on here and chatting with them, just to hear all these different backstories and really get to know someone a little bit better and see the struggles and tribulations they've gone through. So it's been great, but we are pretty well just going to start crashing over into the hash topic. What got you into hash? I mean, you're so far we've gotten through. We're kind of at the, you know, continue on right where you're at. Actually, I feel like it was just going to start cresting there naturally, anyways. There, Heavy Ice.
Yeah, I'll compress from there to get to the hash making really quick. So yeah, I got my medical card. A friend of mine got me a little sample of cannabis, and it did relieve my pain. You know, a small dose relieved it temporarily, and I learned that, you know, if I take a large dose, that it was actually going to help heal my body. And at the time, I was still in the mindset of being a victim. And, you know, I took my disability settlement and I was buying my bud. I didn't have any concept of being self-sufficient, that I was a custody. And
yep.
So the dispensaries only had flower when I started. So I had to smoke a lot of flower to try to get to a medical dose. And then they started having BHO. And so I smoked a ton of BHO when that first came out. And then the BHO just got really nasty to me. Besides the whole experience kind of being nasty to me and the whole idea of BHO, I had some problems with the dispensary that I was getting it at. Like they would sell it in.
You didn't like open blasted in the backyard, non-purged properly BHO?
Right.
What?
Right. Maybe open blasted into the individual plastic containers that they sold it in, you know. And because a lot of the times I was trying to do something medical and not just get high. And so I would take my BHO and mix it with coconut oil to make capsules, to get strong capsules. And a couple times I would, you know, empty out the jar and little plastic pieces from a broken jar would come out, and it would be like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, that doesn't really have anything to do with BHO or, you know, the evils of BHO.
Just the experience in general, especially the kind of the beginning when it first came, when there wasn't any regulations on it essentially at all.
Right.
And we were having a lot of the backyard blasted poop soup being sent out there. And unfortunately it tainted the name and it damaged a lot of medical patients.
The entire time that I was buying from dispensaries in Detroit, they were not legal. It was a gray area. So yeah, there was literally no oversight. I mean, they had a permit from the city.
Yeah. And we shouldn't start talking like we're in some crazy future and stuff here. This is still going prominently all over the place. I mean, I'm in Canada and BC. We're in kind of like, you know, the BC's land of the grown in a sense around here, right? Like Kelowna, they call it in a sense. And still we've got like 15 gray market dispensaries to 4 or 5 actual legal dispensaries. And of those gray market dispensaries, all of them are running whatever. They've all got, you know, they call RSO, and they'll have literally, you know, isoenol, propanol extracted, ISO extracted concentrates. They'll have naphtha fuel extracted stuff as opposed to ethanol extracted. And it's not horrible and not the same as it was before. Like, you aren't seeing as much of that product, but it's definitely still out there. And for the uneducated consumer, it's generally the cheapest stuff they can get their hands on. And that's where you're having these detrimental experiences, and it's really tainting people's palates and not giving them the proper values that they should have from a product.
Right. So this whole time I'm having this very poor experience with BHO. I should say that it was a good experience using extracts, because my health did improve using the higher concentrated cannabis. But just, you know, with the way BHO works, and, you know, things kind of build up in your lungs, and it just wasn't a pleasant experience trying to use a gram of BHO a day, you know, for medical reasons. So this whole time I'm doing this though, my first couple of years of being a patient, I discover Bubble Hash somewhere and discover Bubble Man's YouTube channel and found him on Facebook. And back then it was long before he did Hash Church. And he just had Tiny Chat, which was kind of like, it was a lot like this kind of app. And so like sometimes like 4 times a day, he would pop on Facebook and be like, hey, anybody want to take a dab on Tiny Chat? And so I took advantage of that for like a year, while I was learning about Bubble Hash, and got to chat with Bubble Man, almost every day, and learn all his tips and tricks. And then tried with my caregiver for one time to get enough bud to make hash, and learned that was never going to be possible. So I had to start growing my own from there. And that was around 2013. And that was it. I did a 1 or 2 rounds in a tent in my bedroom, and it was loud and noisy, and too many bugs got in, and I hated every bit of it. But as soon as I started putting plants outside in the summer in Michigan, that changed everything. I had lots of material to learn with and work with. And you learn quickly when you're providing 100% of your own medicine for the year from one crop.
And you have that reassurance, right? And and I just love touching on it. So I will again, because it's a really reoccurring theme that's coming across the channel, and with a lot of people that are in the industry in positions like yourself that have all this information stuff. And it all comes back down to, they were open-minded, and they took advantage of building community and working with people in their early days, because that's what it's all coming back down to. Everyone just forming relationships, building the community, and being open-minded. And look, all of a sudden you're sitting there chopping it up with Marcus for a year, smoking, and there you go. Now all of a sudden you have all the tips for hash. It's building
Right.
this community, right? That's what it's all about. And it's just staying open-minded, not picking at people in a super negative way just because you have slightly different ideas or a slightly different way of getting somewhere. It's just being respectful is going to get you the most information you're ever going to achieve, because then you're going to have people that are willing to debate you in a respectful manner. And that's where you find these little things where you're like, oh, maybe I was wrong, or the vice versa. So love touching on.
Exactly.
So then we were getting to now you've had your own outdoor product. You've been able to try it out. You have enjoyed, I imagine, your first run of Bubble Hash. You had a decent result, or what happened? Did it go moldy? What did you do with it? I'm curious.
Because that was always my main concern. That was like in the old Bubble Man videos. He hasn't made them in quite a while. That was like something that he always stressed at the end, but he kind of stopped making instructional videos when we learned about powderizing the hash and getting it that fine for drying. And then there was only a short window before the freeze dryers came into existence, and most commercial people started freeze drying, and then kind of like that art of breaking up your hash for air drying, sometimes gets lost there in the middle of the history. And so that was always been a big deal for me. But the one thing he did stress was the pizza box tech for drying at home, and that's honestly the best method that I can think of, because even if you have a big wash that you're drying, you can go to a restaurant supply store. You can buy a package of 50 or 100 large pizza boxes for $20, and line them with
got it for
parchment.
25 cents a box from our local store, and they were thrilled to learn that we were doing hash with them. They were like, "What? So what are these for? What do you want?" And we're like, "We're going to be making some bubble hash," and they're like cannabis? And I was like, "You're damn right." And they're like, "Well, no way, 25 cents, they're yours." Like, it was perfect. It was a fun time.
Yeah, I think the purified water company I'm using this year is watching my account with interest, because I told them that I was making hash with their water, and they didn't really understand what that was about.
We don't get it. Yeah. So now that we're on the topic of the pizza box hash and just what I imagine would be microplaning or sieving, do you quickly want to touch on those techniques a little bit and what you mean by pizza box technique for anyone that's out there listening?
Sure. So like when you make hash, you take your ice and your water and your bud and you agitate it, and that agitation causes the trichomes to fall off the plant material, and they are more dense than water, so they sink to the bottom of the bucket you're working in. And then we use graded mesh bags to filter that out, so that if there are large trichomes on the top, they stay in the top, and the small ones go through and they go to the bottom. So everything gets filtered out. And then when you scoop those bags out, you have like a little puck of hash. And if you were to just leave that sitting out in a puck on your blotting screen that you get with a bubble bag kit, it would dry on the outside, but unfortunately it would get moisture trapped on the inside, and you'd have a lot of potential for molding, and it would be a bad situation if you didn't break up that patty. So
yeah,
what you want to,
just like in there, just like we showed, if you leave it in those little chunks, they'll mold on the inside.
Exactly. And the old school technique, I think, would be to keep it cold and maybe just use a knife and break it up into small pieces for drying. And I know in the old videos that Bubble Man mentioned sieving, although I don't know if I ever saw him sieve wet hash in his videos. I'd have to go back and look at him to know for sure. And then I think the credit has to go to Matt Rise for bringing microplaning to the world's attention. And what that is if you take your wet puck of hash that you pulled out of the bag, if you put it in the freezer for 24 hours or 12 hours and freeze it really hard, you can take a microplane, like a lemon zester kind of thing, and do this. And it's also going to really finely grate it. You can do that over your parchment paper. And whether you sieve or microplane, you want to break up your patty really fine over parchment paper. And the pizza box tech is just to do the whole thing in a pizza box, because especially if you're working at home, you might not have a drying room that is free of dust and cat hair and pet hair and things like that. So the pizza box is really nice that you can close it and you have a lid covering your hash. And also it's the cardboard acts as a desiccant, so it pulls the excess moisture out of the hash really quickly. And it dries a lot quicker than even regular air drying.
So I had a question. The difference between the sieving and then running it through just like a grater type thing or screen. Do you see any difference? Like some people have said that it can really rupture the trichome heads and stuff like that. Have you seen any difference?
I would say I gave up on microplaning really pretty early on, not because of any negativities, just because it was so difficult. Because at the time
it hurts your fingers after a while.
Yeah, that was before we were doing freeze drying stuff too. So, and it was also before I had decided that I could dry my material before I wash it. So I had these little tiny pucks of fresh frozen hash that were so sticky. Like by the time you microplaned it, my whole indoor harvest was only a couple grams. By the time you microplane it, a gram of it was stuck on the microplane. And it was just, for me, it was kind of fail tech, even though I understand the necessity of breaking up the hash. Bubble Man has said that he's looked at like macro shots of hash and that it shreds things. And he has also said, and I agree, that people that microplane their melt, he kind of calls it faux melt. because, it turns to oil when it gets to room temperature because it's already ruptured heads and it's already, oil. I kind of think of it as marmalade because marmalade's kind of chunky, and that's what it would be.
It's a mix of mashed heads and some full heads intact, but then obviously they warm up and you start getting that kind of oozy, just not full structure because most of the heads are kind of shattered.
Right.
Personally too, with the microplane, you kind of, the cold is the necessity, and you have to be so gentle, and it's just such a hard thing to really do in a way that you're not going to mash up your heads.
Oh yeah. When I was doing that, I was still having to do it in a home kitchen that was at home temperatures, and it was a mess.
People do.
It was, I had a hard time talking my family into letting me get it down to 65 degrees in the winter in the kitchen. So yeah, you take the microplane and you do this 3 times, and then you'd put the whole thing back in the freezer for 10 minutes, and then you'd pull it all out and you'd do this 3 times, and you'd put it back in the freezer for 10 minutes. So I don't know. Yeah, I didn't like there's a lot of things I learned in those early days. Like I learned that I didn't really care enough about those few percentage points of fresh terps to go through all that effort with fresh material. Just for me personally, like the difference between fresh material and properly dried material, I like them both the same, and the dry material washes so much more efficiently. And it's less sticky because some of those monoterpenes have evaporated, and it's easier to sieve when it's dry too. So, and then I also learned that I didn't like rupturing the heads with the microplane, and it made a whole lot of sense to me that if I'm going to long-term store my hash, in the fridge for a year until my next outdoor crop is ready, that maybe cannabis already designed the best storage device for the oil, and that's the trichome head. So I should really pay attention to preserving the integrity of the trichome head and not shredding it with a microplane. So the whole idea of drying the herb first, to make it a little less sticky, to toughen it up, and to make it a little more brittle falling off of the plant material during the hashing, it all just made a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, of course. And then it depends how deep you want to look. But obviously in nature, you're most likely not going to find the plant as soon as it's finished and still wet and everything. You're most likely going to come across a patch of some dead plants that have already kind of shriveled up and dried up, and they've naturally had that happen. And whatever chemical changes are happening on the inside via certain terpenes off-gassing, other ones that are, having interactions with each other within the head once that waxy membrane seals them in together, essentially. And then we don't know, there's plant esters, cannaflavins, and all these things that we're still so unaware of. I think there's a lot of merit to all of it, right? But it definitely, like, if you've had a lot of experience with fresh frozen product, be it the BHO or anything you're working with, you'll know it's a lot more caustic. And in turn, that's a lot more kind of hypey and easy to sell, but it doesn't always correlate to maybe the health. Like, we don't know how it works, right? Like, I know if I'm dabbing something that's super caustic all day, the next day my throat's raw, right? Like, I don't want to be hitting that all day, no matter how amazing the terpene profile is. So there's merit to everything.
Right. And yeah, I don't have anything negative to say about fresh frozen hash at all, really. It's kind of a personal preference. For me personally, it does taste a little fresher. There's more distinction between the strains when you taste it, because there's more information there. But the potency doesn't always seem to be there for me, and I don't know why that would be, because it's the same trichomes, but that was also part of my determining factor in washing dry material.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to ruffle too many feathers here, but it could be kind of like a same thing in context with, like, say, this new CRC tech, right? Where it's really easy to make everything just look freaking beautiful, right? Like, even that jar I showed, like, nice and white and gorgeous. It could smell like hay or smell like, 2-year-old product, because it is, that's just been ran through something. And then kind of in the same context, it's pretty easy to just toss everything into a freeze dryer and have it look amazing and have a lot more of those monoterps and stuff in there that kind of can help dress it up a little more in a sense. Like I'm not, I'm looking, we want a freeze dry. We're going to go down that road. So I'm not bashing anything, but I could understand where it's going to have that kind of higher echelons product. And if you're doing a cure and stuff, to get something that is going to wow people, that's a little bit darker and that has had the air cure, you're going to need that better initial product. So it's kind of like a vetting step almost.
Right.
Pissed anyone off out there, you and your freeze dryers.
No,
So-
it's go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead. Darren, after this, Darren, I think you had something to say. Go ahead.
I didn't have anything good to say, so Darren can go ahead and talk.
Well, Darren, I thought you looked like you maybe had a question or something for Heavy
Red
and
too.
Red. You guys both, if you have any questions, please
I've
cut
had
in.
30 questions, but I
Please.
can't seem to jump in because I don't want to interrupt the conversation going on. And then once I get another question, the other one's gone. So it's like I just want to say I love hash too. It's great. Thank
What
you.
time is
this
it,
is-
Darren?
Me? Did you say Darren or Aaron?
Hi, that's hilarious. I said Darren, and then Darren coincidentally's audio cut out in perfect timing. But it's time for a bong rip, all you out there. That's the time.
Cheers. Hell yeah.
You guys, bong rip.
Hell yeah.
Cheers, everybody, for
Darren.
tuning in today. And if you have any questions for Heavy today, please let us know. Direct them to Drake or one of us in chat, and
And Red
be
River.
sure to get it answered. And so I do have a question though coming up though. I was thinking what was one of the biggest faux pas that people think you have to do with bubble and you really don't?
Ooh,
is there
that is a great
misnomer,
question.
maybe?
That's an awesome one, Tara.
But take your dab, think about it for a minute. We'll all chat. We can say
And I
hi
think-
to chat and everybody.
Let's let Red air out what he was going to say, because I've seen that mic pop off 3 or 4 times now. So I'm sure you got something on the tip
He's
of your
ready
tongue
to
there.
dab.
No. I was just gonna say that. No, I've been watching Heavy for a while, man, and just much respect for the process he's doing to make his own medicine, do it organically, do it naturally, and then process it naturally. It's really, really great to see. And it's like, a lot of people don't have access to the big cities or big dispensaries, and you can do this just to, if you take the time, you can do this anywhere. You can make your own medicine, make your own concentrates, and it's really good to see, more and more people coming up and doing that. That's all I was going to say. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Red. Thank you very much. That's the perfect thing to jump into this next bong rip with.
Ooh, hope you're all happy and high out there. Yeah.
Yes, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you are on live chat, as Tara said before. Get those thumbs up, smash that subscribe button for Tara. We just want to keep getting good information out for all of you. And if we are ready, what are some of the no-nos, the faux pas to produce and hash that you really don't need to do? What's something that's coming through? And I see you're still puffing away, so feel free to finish up your rip there before you jump into that answer, Heavy Ice.
Okay, give me 1 second.
We can do that.
That's an easy question to answer, being the admin of all those hash groups.
Exactly. Yes. And as we said before, and for anyone that doesn't know, Aaron is an admin. Heavy Ice here is an admin for a lot of the groups. He's been doing this for a very long time. Mentioned earlier, he was puffing it up with B-Man, Marcus, Gary Richardson on Facebook, on Tiny Chat back in the day before there was even Hash Chat. So Hash Church, Hash Chat. It's all Hash Chat. So he's been around for a minute. He knows what's going on. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. Hit up his obviously, that means he's got a prominent presence on Facebook as well.
No, mostly Instagram.
Mostly IG?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I keep to myself on Facebook.
I don't even do Facebook anymore.
But I imagine
so-
some of the groups are on Facebook as well that you would moderate.
Yes, they're all on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
That's what I was saying. So it's
I'm
the
sorry.
groups. Yeah, not the person, the groups, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
See 'em around.
Come to the groups, leave me alone. There you go. So, all right. Faux pas. It kind of goes, it honestly goes both ways depending on what the culture of the state is. The cannabis culture of the area of the person asking the question. But like in states that have been legal a while and they've already got a market, people seem to be surprised that you can dry your bud and wash dried bud. Like they've only gone to the store and bought fresh frozen whole plant hash. So they in their minds, the only way you can make hash is fresh frozen whole plant, fresh frozen whole plant. So there's a lot of people that ask, can you wash dried bud too? Can you wash dried trim? Which surprises me. But then, you know, from states where, you know, maybe they don't have the legal market, they're not buying products, you know, and all they know about hash is from, you know, their old uncle who, you know, made it in a bucket 15 years ago. They might not know you can make it from fresh bud. And so those states seem to ask the question, can you actually just take a fresh plant and make hash out of it? So it kind of goes both ways, which is something that maybe not everybody would get to observe if you weren't in all of those hash groups. And then besides that, the biggest faux pas is not drying properly, I would say. And it's hard to tell people about that because there are some end products in the hash market that are like a temple ball. It looks like a brown turd, and it's hard to tell people who just pulled their wet hash out of a bag and have a ball of wet hash that's turning brown from oxidation, that's not the way to make a temple ball. You know, you still have to powderize it and dry it properly and, you know, do all these steps. So, you know, no matter what you want your end product to be, beach sand or a temple ball or hash rosin, you know, you have to dry it properly. So that's probably the biggest faux pas.
Touch on drying. How long do you recommend to dry usually? Is it, you know, if you've got what temperatures do you recommend? What's like your perfect environment, and about how long you'd say in that environment?
Well, for me, I personally try to take the Michigan seasons into account for everything. So like, I don't know if it's ideal, but my drying room gets darn near freezing in the winter. And usually around or below 40% humidity. And I leave it out on drying racks without cardboard around them for 7 to 10 days, usually. And I've done it for a few years now, and I've of course taken samples, you know, just about every day at every step of the way. And, you know, have reasons for doing it that long. But yeah, that's what, if you were doing it in a different environment though, like if you were in a warmer environment, I would think you'd want to dry it a lot shorter time and then get it in jars and get it in the refrigerator to preserve your terpenes. For me, I know that at 40% humidity, it's going to dry. So for me, it's all about trying to preserve what terpenes are left in the dry material, you know, because there is a difference between fresh frozen hash and hash from dried material. And I don't want to degrade it anymore by excessively drying the hash, you know, after the bud was already dried. But, you know, at those temperatures, I don't think it's really degrading much. You're not off-gassing a whole lot of terpenes at 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that sounds like the perfect, I mean, you know, cold and dry, you know,
yeah.
And that's about as dry as it gets.
And really, I mean, if you don't have detailed controls over your environment, the idea is just as cold and dry, dark, if possible, as possible.
If you and the dangers of leaving too much moisture in there is you just kind of speed up that the oxidation process, and your terpenes gas off quicker, and you know, you have the chance of mold also. But is that the kind of the cons to, you know, to rushing it?
Well, the things I've noticed are, yeah, it will definitely mold more easily if you leave moisture in it. And I did have one wash where I got to observe that happen. It was the very first wash of my very first outdoor crop. and I put it in jars too early. I thought it was dry and stable, and I left it on the counter, for a couple months, and I opened it up, and it had a white fuzz on the top. But the other things I've noticed is like if you just take your hash and the trichomes are already dry if you're washing dry material. So if you sieve it and then leave it out for 24 hours or maybe a little longer, it looks dry. I mean, it even feels granular. At that point, I usually sieve it a second time to break up additional chunks. But I know some people, will jar it at that point, and it does, like, the moisture does break the trichome head, so you get the appearance. I think it's the foam melt again. You can get the appearance of a greasy product when really you're getting a degraded product that just hasn't oxidized and turned brown and poopy yet. So, I try to sieve it at least once or twice to make sure everything's really broken up, and then just let it dry until it's bone dry. I mean, I haven't found any reason to leave any amount of moisture in my hash. So even for rosin purposes, I let it get as dry as I possibly can.
Wow, I would have no idea. Like, really? So I was thinking, like, do I need to put like one of those boosts in there to store my hash for a long period of time? Wow, that's really interesting, because your hash looks amazing on Instagram. I'm going to show that
Thank
off
you.
really quick. I've got it pulled up here, ready to go. Because every time I look at your page, it just makes me drool. This picture, I mean, look at that. I mean, it just is amazing. And then this one, like, oh my gosh. Like, doesn't that just look fabulous?
So clean.
I think it's time for a dab with all that being shown.
Right?
Tabby, is there any more pictures you'd like to point out on here and talk about?
None specifically that come to mind.
Okay.
Find one
there
pair.
are, let us know. Well, let us know if there are any. And, what do you think are some of the big tips and tricks that people need to know, before we get in all the questions here and bombard you? What are things you think you need to talk about today?
Well, I think it's important that, like, I didn't know that this whole thing can be done at home. It's especially much safer than a lot of the solvent extract routes that you could do at home, for sure, because you're just mixing around ice and water. Probably the most damage you could do is spilling water on your kitchen floor and ruining your linoleum or something.
Drop the bucket on your toe.
Right. Get something heavy. So that's what I would say. And really, in so many states going legal now, and even doing rec, if you can just grow even a couple plants for yourself outdoors, they get really big if you put them right in the ground and grow them under the sun. And you'll have a lot of material to work with, and you can learn a lot. And I think most of even though California and Florida, places like that, aren't going to have cold parts of the year like I do in Michigan, most parts of the country is going to have some kind of seasons where people can work with them, and they're going to have cooler temperatures in the winter, that are better for hashing, and then they can grow as much cannabis as they possibly can in the summer. So they have, lots of trimming and things to do in the fall, and then they've got all winter to make their hash.
Well, speaking on outdoor, were we earlier talking, I can't recall if it was live or not, but just about the washing of the plants and lots of things that go on about that?
We talked about that yesterday. We can talk about that.
Yeah, that was yesterday. That was, yeah. Can you bring that up, please? Because that was something too that's there's a lot of debate over.
Sure. Well, I mean, for me, because I make hash out of my plants, out of 100% of my outdoor plants, I did a couple seasons of my outdoors where I didn't dunk my plants at harvest. And so I got to experience what was in my wash bags when I got around to washing the plants. And, you know, a lot of times you'd be like agitating your hash and you'd be like, oh, wait, is that a spider leg? Okay, pull that out. And, you know, just because the spider was alive on the plant when you cut it out and put it and you hung it up in your drying room, you know, that was all that was involved in harvest at the time. So I knew that there was a lot of stuff getting even maybe not even necessarily in my hash, but it was getting in my wash water that I didn't want. I didn't want bug parts and you know, sometimes a lot of times I'd see seeds, you know, from weeds and stuff that have blew in and stuck on the cannabis, thistle seeds and things like that, which aren't harmful, but you know, you gotta pick them out if they can get through the 220 bag, you know, so they're a little annoying. And it all just proves that there's stuff getting in the hash. If it's in the work bag, it's getting in the hash. I don't remember where I initially heard about it, but when I started researching bud dunking, I found Doc Hybrix on Instagram, and he had already done a couple of videos and had a blog post about bud dunking. So that year we took his advice and did the sodium bicarbonate and lemon juice dunk, and were amazed at how much gunk came off of the outdoor plants that were otherwise beautiful, no spray plants. You know, they didn't have any insect infestations. They didn't have mildew or bud rot or anything. They were perfect plants, but they were just dirty from being outside. It used to be the country, but it's a neighborhood now. And so I've got neighbors that mow their lawn within 20 feet of where my garden is. So there's dust and grass and debris getting kicked up sometimes twice a week from him because he's kind of paranoid about it. And he does that all the way through until today. Today is snowing, so he won't be mowing his lawn today. But that's how much debris gets in the air at my house in particular, is a crazy guy that mows the lawn all the way through harvest and everything. So yeah, and even just this past year, to prove to everybody how much I was rinsing off, I got a 15 micron work bag from Rosin Evolution. And after all my dunks, I dumped 90 gallons of the water that I'd been dunking all my plants in through the 15 micron bag, you know, just to see if there was hash in there, to see if there was gunk in there, what was in there. And it was all muck. It was all nastiness. Most of it was like mud, which makes me think that it's probably bugs, you know, beneficial and non-beneficial bugs, you know, because even the beneficial bugs have to poop. So so it's just, yeah, a lot of the dust from the air and, you know, bugs.
Yeah, I bet just a huge amount of dust alone with the sticky, you know, with the getting stuck on there.
Yep. And surprisingly, I was even surprised, but that it was this little. But after dunking like two big, huge outdoor plants in 90 gallons of water, and then filtering it through 15 microns, there was not enough hash in there for even one dab. So like not even enough to count. You could tell that there were a few trichomes stuck on the edge of the bag, but that's about it. So yeah, it made a noticeable difference in the cleanliness of the hash after we started doing that. And probably peace of mind too, because it didn't degrade the product at all. It didn't degrade the final hash at all. Mm-hmm. But now I know in my head that all that crap is not being agitated in my work bag.
It's clean.
Yeah, right. I could go in there and just eat all the buds that are dry in there now. You know, there's no bugs on them.
I'm curious how much material do you usually do? Do you use 40-gallon tubs? Is it 40 or
Those
50
are
gallon?
32
Oh,
gallon.
30,
Yep.
32 gallon. How much material do you usually process at one time when you're using that size tub?
Like actual dunking, or do you
Oh
mean
no,
like?
I'm sorry. When you're washing, I'm back on hash. I'm
Oh,
bouncing
okay.
around.
You know,
Squirrel.
that's a good question, because like when I did it large scale, I had my friend Andy helping me, and um, like he paid attention to numbers and stuff like that, and I didn't. So so I mean I feel like at least 1,500 grams dry we would put in there, in a 32 gallon. Um, and that was just the 32 gallon with a 220 bag in it. So it was not a whole stack of the 8 bags, you know, it was just a work
Right.
bag. Yeah. So I honestly can't give you, and when I do it this year, I probably won't even have a scale in the hash barn. It'll just be by eye.
Yeah, that's
I
how I
fill
do
up
it.
about a quarter of the bag. I fill up with bud, and then I cover it with ice, and then I let it cover that with water and let it soak before I start working.
Right on.
So
Yeah, that's how I did it in Hood River, and it was always like, well, how much did this, and did you weigh it before you did this? I'm like, nope, just kind of
well,
eyeballed it. I mean,
I mean the reason I don't really weigh it is because I don't trim anything, so my numbers won't mean anything to what most people have in mind.
right.
You know, if I say I'm washing a pound of untrimmed bud on the stem, you know, they don't have, even I don't have any concept of what that'll be trimmed up, and you know, but I don't need to know. It just all hashes.
Yeah. How many times do you usually, on an average, do you think you run something just till it quits giving, or how many washes do you think you do?
Yeah, for me, it has to be all about efficiency, which is why I do the dry material to begin with, because I started with back problems. I don't have them as much anymore, but it's still about efficiency with me. And usually with the dry material, I can knock it all off in like 4 or 5 washes.
Yeah.
I think let me look at all the jars that I have out and open right now are all either 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5. Grease Monkeys 1 to 5. And usually what I do is I keep.
Do you want to show those off? I got you spotlighted.
Okay. This is the Grease Monkey.
Oh, nice.
I don't think this camera zooms in, does it? No, it doesn't. That's the Grease Monkey.
Nice.
And what I usually do is, you know, a lot of people on the hash groups ask about which bags you should use when you're making hash. And really, I use all the bags, and you know, keep everything separate until it's dry, just to see, so that I know it's there. But in a lot of cases, like the Grease Monkey I just showed, this was the 120U from all 5 washes, which meant that when I jarred it, I tested them all and decided they were all melty enough to go together.
Nice.
What was left? Wonder Weasel. 120U.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I missed that one. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. You have to wait for the next one.
Keeping him on the edge. I like it.
Damn it. All right. Did you want to take a dab? We're keeping you talking so much. If you want to dab, please, like, just feel free.
Yeah,
to
I
dab
might take a dab.
Go for it. Yeah. And Darren, how are you today? What's going on with you?
Oh, it's another Sunday, nice and lazy. Did a bunch of canning and stuff last night and night before. Got to fillet a bunch of salmon here, get the skin off because I like it better in the can. And I give the skin to my dogs. So I'll can all that stuff and let them have it with their meals, put it in with their stuff because it's just good. Nothing but goodness. And I don't feel like wasting any of it, you know? And that's about it. Good old bong ripping. I'm nice and baked, pleasantly baked. it's nice to listen to Heavy Ice. Every point he's touching on, I know exactly what he's talking about. I've been making hash for a long time myself, and that moisture, my biggest biggest thing in the curing is the pizza box cure is the one I like the most. And there's really something to say. All these the ice wash hash and all this stuff. Now this stuff is new to us in the last how many years? Do you know, Heavy Ice, how many years we've been doing the ice washing, or fresh frozen, I mean?
I think, well, I think ice hash in general has only been around since the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. So
fresh frozen is even newer.
It is, and I believe that was introduced on Heavyicerx or something like that. Well, the rosin was introduced on Heavyicerx, but I don't know about the fresh frozen. I think they were probably doing that when we were on Tiny Chat and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably 2000s, early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah. Now that's when I met Mark. Yeah, the hash wasn't like that then. It is like it now. It's beautiful. It was beautiful, but not like it is now. And for myself, I really feel there's really something to say about really nice cured pot and really nice cured hash, and in its nice puck after it's been cured, it's in a nice little brick with a stamp on it or whatever, like the old days, of just like the Rolex stuff and the gold seal and all that. We take that because and the fresh frozen stuff when you're microplaning and how much you lose doing that and how much is on your finger, like everything, the gloves, how much you lose. It's almost like it's not worth doing because you're gonna get a better return, easier to work with product if you're, because it's really hard to work with that shit when it's just turning to grease as soon as your fingers are touching it. It's and then if you're not using gloves, you got the oils from your hands or maybe some dry skin or dirt under your nails, whatever. And the outdoor washing, giving them a dunk. I like giving like on the first washes of hash that I like doing, I like putting I like doing a minute and 30 wash or even 30-second wash, and then put it into another machine completely, letting it drain out of the pillowcase bag, and then putting in another machine completely and letting it do its thing. And because I grow indoor, not outdoor. And my indoor, I've got a big shop vac. I vacuum the floors. I keep the dust down as much as possible. There's no dust in there. But if you don't do that first wash, if you're doing a 3-minute run, a minute and a half run, and you're checking the hash, that hash, you look at it under a microscope, you've got the little squigglies in there, those little squiggly dust particles that do actually land on your plant. I got 8 plants in that room going at all different directions and stuff, so there's going to be shit flying around. It's best to keep your stuff clean as possible and all that, but I find it's really important to do that first dunk, first wash, even first soak. Like it's important for sure. And you look like you got some really fucking beautiful hash there, buddy. Good on you.
Thanks, sir.
Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome, brother.
And we're bridging the gaps between Canada and the States right now. He's actually Heavy Ice from Michigan, if y'all didn't know. Tuning in. Red River, he's from down south. We got DK up from north, up in the Vancouver area. If y'all are tuning in today, where are you all tuning in from? I'd love you all here to hear and introduce to one another, to yourselves in chat. Say hello to one another. Get to know your brothers and sisters.
Darren's another day even norther. So,
yeah, I'm in the interior, British Columbia, up north. It's fucking snowing.
It's hash season for you already.
Yeah, like I was literally thinking, which part of my yard should I grab my snow to shovel into my garbage bucket to start making my hash, because I can anytime now.
Do you make snow hash? I heard snow hash wasn't very good. That's a question. There you go. There's a good question for both of you.
Okay, the snow hash that I have made has seemed to do a very nice return. Very greasy, like we soaked it up and everything like that. We soaked it with the snow and got the water just cold as cold can be at the moment without freezing. I think that had really something to do with it. And there was no ice cubes to really smash up everything and maybe mash together some of that weed and get the particles, the weed particles mashed together and floating. And then you get some of your green material in your wash. It didn't have any of that factor in it. It just produced straight greasy hash. And I think the biggest part that you're going to look at is the quality of your snow. You live in an area that's got a pulp mill that's fucking stinky today, then you're probably going to get stinky snow, and that stink is probably going to get on it. Like you definitely going to want to use a good quality snow, good air quality area, and don't use any yellow snow. It's probably bad for you. Little salt.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Frank Zappa said something about that, right?
I haven't honestly tried it myself, just because I've seen the in my area the environmental warnings by the state not to eat the snow occasionally in the winter. So that tells me that it's probably not a good idea to mix it with my bud. I wish I could, though. Like I wish we could go back in time to before the Industrial Revolution, and I could, like, I live in a town called Lake Orion, and there was a big industry on the lake in the winter. They would go out on the lake with their saws and cut the big blocks of ice to put in their ice houses for the winter. And it would be so cool if everything was still clean enough that, I could go get my big chunks of solid, naturally frozen ice right off the Lake Michigan or off of Lake Orion, like we used to be able to do 200 years ago. But, it's obviously too dirty for that these days.
Here's something I was asked recently, and it's just, I'm curious because saltwater ice is harder and it's colder than freshwater ice.
Mm-hmm.
What about washing your hash with salt water, and rinsing it with fresh water after it's done in the bag before you process it out? Has anybody ever done that? Is it
I mean, I've seen posts about it on social media. Whether they were just talking about it or whether they actually had done it, I'm not sure. Like, I didn't get to witness it. But yeah, the theory is that everything stays colder, so it works better, but then you have to rinse it a lot more to make sure you get all the salt out of it.
there's a lot of microorganisms and stuff in salt water as well. Is like that you can't see without a microscope. How about that stuff getting trapped in there maybe and stuff like
you'd want to
washing, but how do we rinse microorganisms thoroughly?
Right. I mean, you'd probably want to have like a supply of sodium chloride from like a chemical company if you were doing that. If you're actually trying it, because then you would know it was chemically pure, pure salt. It wouldn't have anything mixed in with it.
And does that react with the trichome heads, man? Does that that's what I would be worried about.
Yeah.
Because if it would have some kind of, I don't know,
breaking down process of it right away or something,
Yeah.
My thought is that, I mean, you can get the water cold enough with just the ice. So I haven't really thought about trying it just because I haven't had the need to.
Yeah.
Kind of like, back to the hash groups on Facebook, all the kids that are just doing it for the first time this year and asking about dry ice.
Yeah, I see that.
I can get everything colder if I use dry ice. Can I throw that in there? Can I put it around my barrels? Can I stuff it in my bags? Blah, blah, blah. No, just the ice water gets cold enough. You don't have to go nuts with it.
Or the bag hash with the ice, with the dry ice. With the bag
yeah, yeah.
You really get a lot out of it, but it's a lot of keef.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of
Worse,
contaminants.
I think it's worse than farmer's grade keef myself.
Yeah, I think Bubble Man has said and posted photos where he showed that the keef can have less trichome density than the flowers that it came from, because only so many trichomes came through, but then a bunch of green plant matter came through. So it's actually dirtier than if you just had used the flowers to begin with.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. That's the
And,
process of it.
and there's questions about how clean dry ice is, because even if it came from a gas tank from a chemical company, we all know from the BHO world that there are mystery oils in those gas tanks, and they don't take those into account when they do that for food grade purposes even. So
It basically boils down to the old school processing days when there was no machines or anything to help along with any of it. Really nice cured bud, properly sifted or properly broken down with ice and water, because that's brand new. But sifted and broken down is even better, when it's done right. But old school ways are usually best, because you get the best return, and they've been tried and true for fucking hundreds of years, thousands of years.
They find dried cannabis in Pharaoh's tombs and Viking tombs and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, there's something to say about just common sense with the plant, growing it, curing it, processing it, and into whatever medicine you fancy. It's a beautiful thing, man.
It is.
And just on the tail end of the processing, I know Tara had brought up prior, but what's going on with the spent material? Does anyone have, do you have a crafty way of doing anything with it to make it reusable, or is it just, what's the process with the spent material?
I compost everything when I'm done, mostly because it's just a long day for me. The whole process of doing it, I hand wash everything, and after 10 hours in the hash barn of backbreaking work, I don't have the energy to put it all out on drying racks and try to dry it for doing a plant fat extract with it, to try to get the last little bit of medicine out of it. So I just compost it. It goes into a pile. I'm usually lucky if I get my bags emptied out at the end of the wash, because I'm exhausted. So
say if somebody didn't have the amount of plants that you grow, because you grow some amazing plants.
Full time.
Yeah. So healing the back as well. So say somebody had didn't have that amount of material, and so they could do more with it. Is there something to drying that plant material out and then try to recover it with some oils, or is that kind of really a waste of time? I'm sure you've done a lot of these things.
Well, I haven't done a lot, just because I've always used really super potent capsules and stuff for my own meds, and I knew that making an infused oil with leftovers was going to make a really weak oil. And I don't have any patients that need a weak oil, so I haven't gone to the trouble of it. I know that when you do infusions, it's better to use dry material to begin with. So I would think that if you were washing dried bud, that at the very end of it, you could take all of your wet material that's previously dried, and you could just put it in a crock pot, with a jar of coconut oil, because that process requires a little bit of water, ideally anyway, to help the cannabinoids bind with the coconut oil, I guess. So I think that would be the best way to get everything out of, your particular little harvest. Because then even if you infuse that oil and it wasn't strong enough for you, you could then use that oil as your base for adding hash to it, or adding hash rosin to it, for capsules or for edibles or whatever. And then you would be getting everything out of it. You'd be getting the hash that you extracted, and you'd be getting all the trichomes that were left behind that don't get hashed away.
Cool, very cool. We had two more questions. So one of them earlier, Lemon Hoko had asked in chat, what do you think about making edibles with your hash, and what part of your hash, or do you make edibles with your hash?
I don't make edibles per se because I don't happen to like the taste of eating cannabis, but I do like capsules. So I do like ingesting it. And what I like to do is actually whatever I have, usually the hash that is like 3-star or below, I keep separate for food grade. And everything is kept separate for washing and drying, and all the microns and everything's separate for that part. But at the end, I decide what's food grade and what's smokable grade and everything. So I have a big batch. It's usually not necessarily full spectrum because the really good stuff I've pulled out for smoking. But I tend to think it's mostly the same oil in the trichomes. It's just different amounts of oil in the different size trichomes. So that usually gets rosined for capsules for me, because then there's no filtering of hash out of your coconut oil later on. If you were to infuse it with just the hash, that 100% of your rosin went in the batch.
Good to know. Okay, and there's two more questions. I'm going to take the growing style, since we're on talking a little bit about that. What is your growing style at home? I know you've mentioned a little bit of that earlier, but go ahead.
I guess I would just, if there was a quick answer, I would say I grow organically. I guess the not so easy answer is that I don't like the traditional definition of the term organic, and the way the government uses it makes it kind of meaningless. So I don't really follow strictly any of the growing styles, but it's kind of no-till, kind of KNF. I do some ferments of things I harvest on my property. It's a lot of top dressing of just organic materials. That's about it.
Beautiful.
Plants in the ground.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's what I feel like, touching on that just a little bit, what you're saying, it's basically, it's Heavyicerx's growing style. I think that's what we all need to look about, as creating our own growing style, as long as our own living style, and take a little bit of what we all inspire from, and what we like from another that inspires you, and take that and see how you can bring that in your home and make you feel good and inspire yourself. And I think that, too much of us are looking at others to make us feel good, and we need to take what they make us feel good and bring it within us, and realize why. And another question from chat was pillowcase bag. Can I use a brewer's bag for bubble wash, or should I use the 220 bag and tie it good?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
I think is it for a work bag maybe?
The pillowcase is
Like a closed bag, as opposed to
that goes into your wash machine that you get off the bubble bags. You put your weed, about a half pound
Right.
in a pillowcase, put it in your wash machine and let it do its thing. That's the pillowcase I'm talking about.
And okay, and I think then the question was, or should I just take the 220 bag?
Drake, he dropped off that Canadian internet you guys got up there. Okay, so
I think I can continue his thought though. Is he asking if you can just take a 220 bag and tie it good and put it in the machine?
I think really what he's wondering is could he buy a brewer's bag, or does he have to do for the bubble washer, or does he have to have a bubble bag?
I think the brewer's bag is like $250, right?
Well, there's different sizes of brewer bags now. Have y'all checked brewer bags out? There's big brewer bags, and they're really cheap.
But with the micron,
looking at them, there's several sizes. You can order different sizes now in the brewer bags. And I was looking at them because I was thinking, wow, that'd be a cheap way of not having to clean a lot of bags out. Just saying.
Well, I mean, I hand wash everything now, but my experience with bags and machines is that they they get spun so violently that your sticky herbs get stuck on the mesh on the inside. And then after that happens, nothing gets out. So that was my early machine wash lesson. And then after that, I decided to remove all of the ribbed hoses from my machine and make it a little more food safe. And I tried washing without the bag, which is 100% better, except it's a pain in the ass to wash everything after that. You pretty much have to clean everything with, ice cold water first to get everything out. And then, use ISO and soap and water.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sticky mess.
And it's just way easier to rinse out a bucket or a barrel, and do the hand wash.
I've been thinking the amount of hash the amount of material I've saved up from my medical grow over the last 2 years of really beautiful sugar leaf and small. I've got a ton to make, and I don't want to use any machines at all. I want to use hand washing with a nice small paddle in a big 40-gallon garbage bucket.
Yeah.
Use my 20-gallon bags, and if I want, break it down into the 5-gallon bags too, and just hand bomb the water out of the thing, and instead of pumping, letting it go through that process and everything, and then just dump it in. The hand washing, I think, is one of the better ways of washing. You're getting some real, and not hard either, not with a paint mixer fucking blast.
Oh no. Yeah.
Like just rowing a boat, man. You're going for a stroke. Fucking let it do its thing. If your water's cold enough, everything will break right off of that pistolate stock and get washed down.
You're actually trying not to break up the plant matter too much, so you're honestly you're trying to do it as gently as possible, to be honest, as opposed to when you put a machine on it that's just going So it's a whole different experience.
Also, this is where if you can have your water cold enough that you don't actually need the ice to be creating friction between each other, could possibly be even better for a greasier hash with less contamination. Like just easier to wash, easier to clean, and go through the process of. Who knows?
I have a hard time commenting on that one because a lot of the times my washes are below freezing temperatures. And even if I were to not put ice in it, there'd be ice in it by the time I was done, because it formed in the, there are times when I've dumped into the stack of filter bags and like pulled out the 190 and there'd be a layer of ice in the 160. It's so cold, when I'm working.
Yeah.
So,
So
that's like Darren's ideal.
Explain how you're working though. Yeah. So you're in Michigan. It gets super cold. He hasn't even made hash yet this year, you guys. So he's waiting for it to get how cold? Go ahead, tell him.
Well, like I like daytime temperatures to be freezing, for at least a couple days, for at least they're going to stick around for a while. And it's still like today is tempting me because we have 2 inches of snow on the ground and it's tempting me to make hash, but it's not really cold enough yet because tonight it'll be almost 40 degrees. And so if I were to make hash today and nighttime came around, I'd get ready to sieve it and it would be 40 degrees. It's above freezing and it would be all sticky and I'd be mad, and it's just not a good idea.
Sorry, buddy, go ahead.
I was going to say I'd lose some hash in the process because it would stick in the sieve because it's not cold enough, and that would frustrate me. So I've learned to just wait.
It gets cold enough up here that temperature you're working with of water would be warm if to put your hands in it. You know what I mean? Up here where I live,
32,
20, 30 below, 40 below.
Oh yeah.
For weeks at a time sometimes, but then it's really hard to work with. You don't want to be fucking with water then, right?
Yeah.
You can basically take a cup of water and throw it in the air and it'll freeze before it hits the ground type thing, right?
Right.
But
Yeah, usually we wait for cold days, but if it gets below about 25 Fahrenheit, 10 degrees below freezing, then we don't mess with it.
yeah, for sure. But I think it's a perfect time to make some dry sift. If you have a space outside to make that, to take your leaf or your bud, to just drop it on your screens and scoop them up gently, and it's fresh plant material. And then because it'll be so fucking cold for it, right? Perfect.
Right.
Crispy cold.
I still haven't messed with that beyond just what I've gotten out of a trim bin, but I still have to break down my dry untrimmed buds, and that takes me long enough that I'm probably not going to do it the same day that I do my wash. So I might as well break them down over screens.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because the alternative is to break them down into my work bag the night before, and they just sit out in my barn in the work bag overnight. So I might as well bounce them on the screens. And
so, yeah, I always break mine actually up in my trim trays, and then I put them into my bags or stuff them or anything. Anytime I'm working with my plant material, it's in my trim bag. I just feel, or in my trim bins. I feel like every time you're touching that plant material, like it just needs to be underneath it, like at all times. There's so much I feel like is after it's dried. I'm not talking when
safety
it's wet.
net.
And, yeah. So
I agree. Yeah, the only time I'd trim otherwise is last year we experimented with. Well, previously I've always trimmed my buds before I washed them, so that I had separate, nice trim nugs, and then I had trim. And last year we just tried washing everything untrimmed, and that's the way to do it. If you don't want to do all that work, I think there are reasons to do it both ways, but it's a lot less work if you don't have to do all that trimming. But yeah, you still have to break it down at some point. And last year we broke it down right off the stem into the work bag, which worked awesome because everything stays in the bag then. But unfortunately, you have to do it the same day that you're going to do the wash if you want to keep everything nice and fresh, or else you're just going to trim it all into the bag. It would take us 3 hours to break down enough for a wash, trimming it all off the little stems, a couple of pounds of material. So you either wash it that day or you leave it out in the barn and, let it oxidize and evaporate in the air or whatever.
That brings up a good question. How much do you do at a time in a wash? And then how big is the buckets that you use, and what sizes do you do?
So I agitate in those 32-gallon brute buckets or barrels. As far as I know, all of the brute barrels are food grade plastic, which hopefully for our cases means it's tough enough that it doesn't wear off into our hash. And just when it's myself, I just agitate in one barrel, obviously. But if I have help, my setup, you can pretty much do 2 or 3 barrels of people stirring in 220 micron bags. And then I have just a 5-gallon kit because it's small and it's easy to handle. And I have that embedded, a 5-gallon bucket embedded into the lid of another 32-gallon barrel. And then my stack of bags go in that. So what I can do is I can, agitate in my barrel, pull the work bag out, and then I can pour 32 gallons through it. And, then start pulling my hash bags out. Or if I've got 1 or 2 other helpers with their barrels, we just kind of swap barrels around, empty barrels around, and keep pouring through until it's all done. And then, even with multiple barrels, I mean, I can't give you estimations about weight because honestly, I don't have a scale in the barn and I never have, which frustrates a lot of people that I can't give them yield information. But
roughly how full a barrel?
Usually I've got the 32-gallon barrel, and then I put the 220 bag in it, and I put a little bit of ice on the bottom. And then I would say maybe fill the barrel up maybe a third of the way with bud, and then put a layer of maybe an inch or two of ice on top of that, and then fill the whole thing with water, cover it with water, and let it soak. So, I mean, it's more by eye than by weight.
Oh,
But
that's awesome. That's all we're looking
couple
for,
pounds.
roughly. No one's
You
coming
can
at
probably
you
get
for
a
it.
couple pounds in each one of those barrels.
Cool.
That's good to know, because like if somebody wanted to know the max amount that they could work, or maybe the least amount you think they could work in, and that's kind of gives them an idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Cool. And then how long do you let your plant material soak for? I'm guessing, of course, it depends on whether it's fresh or frozen, whether it's dry cured, how long. I'll let you talk on that.
Because I can mostly speak on the dry stuff, but I let it soak for at least 20 minutes. But, if I'm dabbing, it can go 30 minutes or 40 minutes. I don't really care about it too much. I don't think you can over soak it when you're at freezing temperatures and it's in ice water. It's not
Really?
It's not,
you don't think you can over soak it? Oh my God,
No.
I love hearing this. Oh,
I mean, you're not degrading anything it's sitting in almost freezing water. Like,
okay.
So, I mean, unless you left it there overnight or something, it might degrade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think even we used to talk about, did we want to go get dinner before we did the last wash? Because we'd already done 4 or 5 washes and we were tired. Well, should we go get dinner before we? So I think it could easily soak, in the right conditions for a little while.
Very interesting. And again, you're saying
yeah.
that's ideal conditions, of course, but it's just cool to hear something that's, a
Ice
little
water.
bit contrary to what a lot of people are spewing.
Yeah, I mean, even in a warm environment, as long as you had your bucket wrapped with an insulator and you kept ice in the bucket, you could let it soak for an hour if you had to. That's not a big deal, I don't think. And then for fresh frozen, I don't know. I think I've seen people say you should soak it for a while because it helps pull out some chlorophyll or something. Maybe I didn't have enough experience with the fresh frozen stuff to comment on soak times, though.
Cool. Well, right on. No, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Did we miss any other questions? I think Red River posted. We totally busted him.
No. I got a text from my daughter.
He's falling asleep up there.
I got a text from my daughter.
He's got the proof. He's got the
totally
proof.
thought he was falling asleep. I'm like,
No,
holy shit, we busted
My
him.
daughter just picked up her puppy. She went to get this puppy. So
what kind of puppy?
It's some kind of they think it's like some kind of corgi mix or something. They're not sure, so it's cute. She just sent me a picture.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, not sleeping
Speaking
on
of
the
puppies,
job.
I see Carol Baskins tuned in there next to Darren today.
Oh yeah.
Does Carol have any bubble questions for us today?
No, she's just being herself, loving her scratches, being a little pain in the butt, bugging me, being funny. She's got such an attitude on her. She's something else.
I don't know if you can say that.
What do you got, Red?
It's my daughter's pup. It's some kind of they think it's a corgi mix or something. But yeah, she just picked it up. She's all happy. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a challenge, these little pups. So high.
And Heavy has a kitty catty. She or he? She was tuning in earlier, running around there. I saw that. I love having our animals. My dog was here, but she ditched me. Went and saw my husband. More fun. Well, do y'all have any more questions? Heavy, is there more stuff you wanted to touch on? Did you want to go into the cure maybe of it, or like how long you feel? You said 24 hours earlier about how long you thought the hash should freeze, right? Is that without a freeze dryer? You don't have a freeze dryer, right?
I can talk about that for a minute. No,
okay.
I air dry, and because since I said that's the biggest faux pas, I should probably explain how I do it. I air dry, and really the main idea is just you want to get it in a cool, dry area as possible. So in my weird natural Michigan barn environment, what I have to do is, I've done my wet washing and all the wet work. I do it on a plastic tarp so that I can try to get as much of the water and moisture out of the building as I can when I'm done with the sieving, I guess you'd call it, the wet sieving. And then I do everything cold. Like I open the barn door and get it as below freezing in the room if I can, so that I can use a metal kitchen sieve to break up my hash patties as finely as possible onto parchment. And I haven't actually used cardboard like in the pizza box type method. Since I went larger scale, I got a baker's rack that holds like half. I think there's still just half size baking rack pans, and I line those with parchment paper, and then spread the hash as fine as possible. I mean, usually the whole big, huge 6 foot tall baking rack is full for one batch. Not because there's a lot of hash, but it's just that fine. I want it broken up that much. And then it's freezing cold in there, but it's wet. So I have to turn on a dehumidifier, which means I also have to run a heater to keep the dehumidifier from freaking out. And I do that for 24 hours usually. And it gets the drying room up to about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's enough for the dehumidifier to pull all the moisture out. It gets it down to about 40% relative humidity. And then I literally just turn everything off, and I guess it technically kind of becomes like a freeze dryer because it usually gets down below 32 degrees Fahrenheit in there. Once it's freezing in there, I usually go in and I take my metal sieve again, and I collect all the hash off each tray and dump it in the sieve again and put fresh parchment out because it's all crinkly from absorbing water from the drying process. So I put fresh paper out, and then I sieve it again, which usually if I've done a good job the first time, there are no chunks, but sometimes you break up some chunks the second time. But it also just kind of redistributes everything for everything to dry more evenly. And then I just leave it there for like a week. Usually I don't even go back in the barn for a week to look at anything. And then you test dab everything, which is part of the fun. And you get to decide where, if it's smokable, is it not smokable? And you get the joy of getting to dab the things that are not smokable because you have to learn. And, oh, that was really nasty. I'm not going to do that again. So, all the joys of, making your own medicine. But yeah, that's the drying process. And then I there is no curing as far as I'm concerned, because I guess curing to me implies that there's a change happening. And once my hash is dry, I don't want any change happening. I want it to stay that beach sand consistency as long as possible. So I put it in glass jars, the most airtight jars I can. Usually I put those jars in Ziploc bags, so it's even more airtight. And then I put that all in the refrigerator. I don't really want it to freeze for some reason in my head, but I put it in the refrigerator, and hopefully it's just going to be the same when I pull it out as it was when I put it in.
So when you say that you put it in the jar, do you know what the humidity of that is? Do you have one of those little humidity readers in there? Or
I mean, the room humidity is usually 40 or below. I don't have anything to measure the moisture level in the hash or anything.
Okay, so then I would assume then at that point your hash is definitely 40 or below, or 40 percent below, right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
Is that it's at least that dry? Yeah.
Cool.
Because it's been sitting at 40% for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I can imagine on your second sift, and you're doing the sift just right back onto the parchment over top of the trays, right? Just carefully and distributing it as evenly and as delicately as possible. Second time, you're probably just almost just kind of doing it like flour because it's already kind of ground. You're probably not doing too much forcing the second round through and trying to be as delicate as possible.
Right. Yep. It just kind of falls through. Usually I do like you take this crinkly piece of parchment off the tray from it being wet, and you kind of have to be very careful because it's all crinkly to get it all in the center. And then I dump it onto the sieve on another piece of clean parchment. And then I let it, I do one sift just into a pile so that I know it's all nice and clean. And then I put the clean parchment on my tray again. And then I move my sifter over there, and then I dump the whole thing on there and then spread it out with the sifter. Yeah, just like flour, like
process.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. I've sifted it a couple times in that step if it looks like it's kind of chunky. But
That's just perfection right there, man. That's awesome.
We love hearing it. And these are the little things that come out when you're going through everything. And I just can't believe how detailed you're being with all this. It's incredible. I'd have trouble trying to retrack my steps, but when you've done something for so many times, it's just like looking at the back of your hand. It's easier to talk about.
Oh, well, wait until you hear the next headache is that I can't find a very good stainless steel sieve now to replace the one that I've been using for almost a decade. The same company that sells it now, it's made out of tin instead of stainless steel, and I'm afraid of breaking it into my hash. So I have to research those. And how do you do that? Like during a lockdown, when all you can do is order things online, how do you know whether this picture of a metal sieve is finer than this picture of a metal sieve? Like, they're probably the same picture taken in a factory in China somewhere. There's no relation at all. So it would cost a fortune to have to buy 50 sieves and actually physically look at them, But yeah, that's the kind of perfection that you have to.
That's what it takes to get it to the next level, man. That's exactly that's why your stuff's like it is. Yeah. And
that's why I do have like 15 extra metal sieves just hanging around the yard. They sift everything. Once they've been deemed to be too big or too clunky for making hash, then they're kind of junk to me. So they filter compost tea in the summer.
There you go. Yeah.
Good ahead,
man. All right, man.
Good seeing you, Darren.
Thanks for hopping on. It's great having you as always, coming by for a few bong rips, and you really got into some really critical things. So I'm glad you jumped on and got into that for us.
Gotcha.
Man, I appreciate all the knowledge, man. It's really cool that we're hitting some really, really good stuff today. I really appreciate it.
Gotcha. The PG snow hash.
Hey, Darren. Oh, wow. Yeah. So where are we at? Okay. So you were having a hard time finding a screen. What size of screen or do you know the sieve that you normally use? Like, do you cause there's,
no, that's the thing. That's like, you have to almost become an expert in everything, like in every little aspect. Like now do I have to learn about wire mesh manufacturing and mesh sizes? And, usually the things that are scientific where they've got the mesh measured, they're not the bowl kind of sieve. They're the flat sieve, like for doing like mineralogy. Soil sieving. Yeah. And I don't know. I haven't bought one yet to see if they would work, but the way I do it is like in the bottom of a round metal sieve. So I don't think that would work as well. And you just can't, they don't put the micron size on those. They're just metal kitchen sieves. But some of them are they're like the wires are as thick as the inside of a pencil, and they're stainless steel, or maybe they're coated in chrome, or you have to learn all these things. My favorite
I'm
one.
actually looking to buy one right now on Amazon. I was just looking. So now
It's
we're having
crazy.
this conversation and I know what you're
There's a
talking
million.
about. Yes.
There's a million of them. My favorite, actually, I bought at a local grocery store. Like the first year I started, they had a 3-pack of kitchen sieves for $9.99. So that's what I bought, and that's my favorite. And it's the whole unit is stainless steel, and the mesh is the metal itself is really fine, and it's really close together, and it's stainless steel. Like, so, you
Okay,
clean the thing
so
with clean it with
have you-
alcohol and it's clean.
Have you looked at a flower siever?
The one that the mechanical
No.
one.
They actually have flower sievers that are bigger, that are similar to like the ones that sit on buckets for the gravel and all the soil things. But they actually have metal ones that look more like they're like they have even like up to 6-inch and 12-inch. I think similar to like almost like a stainless steel pan with a siever in the bottom. So the sieve just is kind of in the bottom, but the has a little bit of the sides on it. That might help. I don't know. Just a thought.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check that out.
It's
Because,
I know it sucks when you get a system down and you think you're going to
Right.
be able to. I know, because I'm trying to figure it out now. Because like I said, I like, what kind do you use? And it's we
Yeah.
need to be aware of these metals, like because we need to be aware. We're medical patients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was frustrating because last year, when all of the online sales ones that I'd try buying were failures, I decided I was just going to go back to the same grocery store and buy the same $10 pack of 3 sieves, and be done with it. And they had, they'd changed manufacturers, and it was a stainless steel ring and a stainless steel handle, but it was not a shiny stainless steel metal mesh. It was dull tin. And my friend, the first time he used it, he got his spoon and started banging the hash through it and put his spoon right through the mesh, so you could tell it wasn't as strong. And I just haven't found a replacement yet. As you can see on Amazon, it doesn't say if they're 220 micron or 160 micron or.
So maybe like a Teflon. Like, we'll have to really do some research on this and let everybody know. Let's keep everybody posted. Follow everybody on Instagram, you all, and he'll keep you posted on what one he finds.
And vice versa. If there's anyone out there that's gone through the kind of the tribulations of this already, and you've got a wicked stainless steel sieve that's the right proportions, kind of like your kitchen one that he's talking about, and similar micron or something that might work, shoot us the links and we'll forward them up.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, hit him up, give him a follow, and then hit him up and say, hey, I think this is close. And just make sure it's what are you looking for. You're looking for stainless steel, and ideally some tight small mesh, like the typical kitchen sieve is essentially what you're looking to replicate, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's seen the basic one. Yeah, like a 6-inch maybe bowl.
3, 6.
But the things that you would be picky about for hash making are that the mesh size and the mesh tightness and what it's made out of. So
perfect. So there we go. We've heard it. If it meets that criteria, reach out to us, because we're looking too. And I know I've got the round ones, the soil sifting screens, and we've kind of played with those for some of the dry sift, and we're going to down the road some more. But same thing, right? You're used to a system, and that works well for you. So it'd be nice to replicate what's going well.
Yeah, I mean that may work just fine. If you're really careful about it, because I imagine you take your frozen puck off your blotting screen. You don't have to, be rough with it and throw it in a bowl and bang it with your spoon. You could set it on the flat screen, on your parchment or something, and break it up with the spoon, and keep it all in the center so that you don't need to worry about the bowl shape. And when everything's cold, to be honest, it's not really that sticky. The spoon tapping on the metal sieve is about all you need to get all the trichomes to just fall off of it when it's cold.
That's a good point. I like that. Yes. Okay. Because I know some people, and I have even done it. My first thing of bubble that I was making, and I was really having to work at it because I know it was warm. I was in a warmer environment and I was letting it heat up, and I wasn't doing that. all the little faux pas that you don't do.
Yeah, there's definitely a magic time when you're doing the sieving, when the puck is cold and almost frozen, but it's not frozen solid. Because if it's frozen solid, then you have to bang on it like an ice cube to break it up. But if it's almost frozen and cold, then it's not sticky and it's just like wet sand. And you can break it up in the, like I usually set the bowl of the sieve on the parchment and break it up like this. So it's mostly broken up already like that. And then you kind of push it through. I almost kind of like use a motion like it's a pepper grinder, and you're kind of pushing it around a pepper grinder like this as I move it over my parchment. And it usually just breaks up and falls right through as if it were sand. So it's not, stickiness isn't really an issue.
Very cool. So I do have a question because I forgot, I skipped right over this part. So your buckets, because 5-gallon buckets, that's what a lot of us have. How do you set that system up? I know you said another one inside of a big pail, but like the 5-gallon systems, how do you have them? Do you have them cut out? How many buckets or how many pails do you use? How do you have that system working?
You want me to explain mine, or do you want me to tell?
Yeah, no, yours. This is all about your system. Yeah,
okay.
Please.
So like I have just the regular 32-gallon brute barrel that I'm doing my pouring into, and they don't sell lids with those when you buy the fancy white ones. So I had to buy the lid that goes with it and fits right in the top, and then I cut a hole in the center of the lid to fit my 5-gallon bucket. In that 5-gallon bucket, I just drilled holes for drainage. I didn't cut the bottom out, because if I had cut the bottom out and put the bags in it, if the bags got heavy, they would fall through the middle and fall into your barrel. So that one just has holes in the bottom. And to reinforce that lid, I had a sign maker friend of mine cut some, it kind of looks like plywood, but it's made out of PVC. It's just PVC sheeting. I don't know if it exists outside of the sign industry, but it just kind of made the PVC lid thicker and more reinforced. And then let's see, from there, I usually skip the 25 bag, to be honest. I usually put the 45 bag and the 70 bag on that bucket. And then I use a spacer, which is just a 5-gallon bucket with the bottom cut off, because there's a lot of water volume that goes through. And that goes in as a spacer. And then I put the other bags, which are usually more of filter bags than keeper bags. And then you just, no matter how much you're agitating, you can just pour through there until your 32 gallons underneath is filled up.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's a wicked.
Yeah. So
Nice.
your filter bags are which ones? Like you say, so you had your work bag was, you started out with a 220, the big one that you stir in, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, the filter bags, well, the two on the bottom, like I said, the 45, which is usually the strains I've grown outdoors here are not terribly melty as hash in the 45 range. I don't want to discredit everybody's 45, but mine's usually not that great. So that's separate. And then a 70 bag. And I usually do what Bubble Man calls a true 70 or a true 73 using his kit, which is to leave out the 90 micron bag. So you're getting like 70 to 119 in the 70 bag. And then I got a 120 and a 160 and a 180. And sometimes I use another 220 bag even on top of that, just to keep things clean. But that's it. And then once I've done my agitating in a separate 32 gallon thing, I just use a 1 gallon bucket, literally no pump or anything. I just move it over 1 gallon at a time. And then once the barrel gets light enough for me to be able to lift it, then I lift it and dump the really trichome dense stuff right through at the end.
God, I love that. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah, I was trying to figure out the bucket thing and how
Mhm.
many buckets I should use, and do you cut the bottom off? And it's
How many
so
people are out there
confusing.
cutting the bottoms off their buckets, all of the buckets, then putting all the screens in like we've seen and play, and they're just not making sense of the actual spacer concept of it. And like you just,
Yeah.
that was very enlightening, that whole system you just shed on people. And it's a pretty easy system for people to make as long as they have, the proper setup, the bags and so on.
Do you have do you
Yeah.
have a whole system set up on Instagram and a picture of that? Drake, you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know what's going on over there.
Hmm.
I'm gonna
I
stop
have
your video for a minute.
I have posted pictures of it on Instagram. I haven't really ever done like an exploded mechanical diagram type thing of how it all goes together. But yeah, I've posted pictures of the kit.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So if everybody wants to go see it, you can check it out over there as well, so you can get a real good idea.
They'll be a year old at this point. Any pictures of it, because I haven't made hash since last year. But if you scroll back far enough, they'll be there.
Maybe he needs to do some update ones and show y'all on a live. I'm sure he does some live, because you used to do a lot of lives making your hash in your hash rooms. That's
It's
where
coming.
I first started following you, I think. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's nearly cold enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the Wi-Fi going in there already.
There you go. See, guys, you can watch him make hash, and it's so cool to have you here and answer these questions for us today.
Heck yeah.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Anything else you think you want to touch on?
No,
We
I think
picked your
I've
brain, have we not?
pretty much covered it. Yeah.
And then some. And if I'm coming in, I just want to say thanks again as well. It's been incredible hearing your story for the first bit, and then really having you just jump in and dive into all these little techs and tricks. And it's been incredible. I know we're all going to learn a lot from it. So thanks again.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thanks
keep
for
doing
having
what
me.
you're doing, man. You're inspiring a lot of people. It's
Thanks,
awesome
sir.
to see.
Exactly. Again, everyone, thanks everybody for being here and staying tuned in today. We appreciate this amazing chat. You guys, love you all. Thanks for all the questions that have came in today. Great questions. If we didn't get to your question, please comment below or go DM Heavy and give him a chat, and he'll ask you your question, I promise. But give him a break, because look at all those followers, and there's a lot of people that respond. I know he gets a lot of questions, I'm sure. The dunking of the flowers, did we not touch on that for the outdoor fire smoke damage? We did touch on that, right? Okay,
Yeah.
shoot. I was like, oh, did I just space it? We did touch it, because we talked about things twice now. So okay, cool.
I didn't really mention the fire damage people in California, but yeah, that's who it helped this year, I think, a lot.
It did, and I know it helped Wendy. We were down there with her out at Humboldt and hanging out with her and helping her harvest. Tom and I went and met up down there and had a great time. So that did come in a good timing. And I think it's awesome that you proved everybody with those screens there again, showing them, look, hey, I'm not getting any trichomes off. It's not
Right.
washing. Everybody says, oh, you're washing it all off. So like I've even hosed mine off because I've had some aphids on the end of mine,
Yep.
you know, and this year I felt safe enough to dunk it this year because of you. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
So
welcome.
everybody make sure you give him a follow, and we will be back again sometime next Saturday with another breeders panel. We were also supposed to give away some seeds today, and I know that Lemon Hoko donated some seeds to us. We're going to be giving those away. Today we were going to give them away to whoever did hashtag free seeds on the last video last Sunday. And Gingerbug was the only one that did it. And she says she didn't want to really win them. She was just doing it to participate. So I'm thinking we should donate those seeds to Heavy Ice if he's interested in taking some seeds from Lemon Hoko. What do you think about that? Are you interested
like
in
seeds.
some new genetics? There we go. Okay.
I like plants,
Of course,
sure.
if you
Okay.
like,
Thank you.
playing with things and growing, that's awesome.
Yeah, let's pay him forward, and we'll give him Heavy Ice, and we'll be able to see him grow and
Thank you.
everything. That would be
And Lemon
awesome.
does some solid work, so I'm sure you guys will chat it up and figure something out really well for the current system you have going on. So shout out to Lemon Hoko as well. Cheers, man. I know
Yeah,
he's been holding down chat.
And today at 2 o'clock, you all, our time Pacific, he puts on a breeder's chat with a breeder in Discord. If you're in Discord, if you're not in Discord, go hit Lemon up on Instagram, DM him, and he will get you in that Discord. So go hit him up as well. He's also an amazing guy. We've been hanging out with him behind the chat. Red River, thanks for being with us today. You're not always with us. And again, Drake, thanks for being here, my co-host on my side.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we'll have Heavy Ice back again. And you guys all have a blessed day out there in chat. Peace and love.
Cheers.
Take care.